Holy cow. Hey guys, Josh with Carl's Mower and Saw. And in my right hand, I am holding 8.6 massive horsepower, the STIHL MS 881. And in my left hand, the Husqvarna 3120 XP chainsaw that's putting out 8.3 horsepower. Both of these are coming in at about 120 cc chainsaws, and they are the top chainsaw in the world. These are the best saws for the size. There's nothing really that competes with these. And it's a matter of opinion, which one is better? And very rarely have I had them both in my presence, in my midst at the same time. So I want to just take a quick peek with you guys today and look at some of the things, and you guys make the decision. I'm not going to fire them up. Really, we're kind of looking at some weight and some air filtration, some clutch covers, some anti-vibration, some of that stuff. And you tell me what your favorite is, which one you think. This is not a saw for the faint of heart. This is not a saw for the firewood cutter. This is a saw that my tree fallers, my tree guys, actually don't break out that often. They like the saw when they need the saw, but it's a saw really they hate to use. It's heavy. All of them, both of them, not these saws. They're heavy. They're loud. They're almost scary to run sometimes. But in the right application, these are game changers. So if you're looking to take out some big timber or need to take out some big timber, or really where they're shining in today's world is in a slabbing application. So if you want to make some sweet, live edge pieces of wood, some slabs, some countertop, table, whatever, live edge stuff, which is pretty awesome, these are the two saws to look at. 42-inch bar, 59-inch bar. We can run a massive bar to make beautiful wide cuts. Let's take a look. So the Husqvarna 3120 XP, 23 pounds, actually just under, I want to say 22.9 pounds. It's a 7.25 cube saw and is putting out 8.31 horsepower. This saw has remained relatively untouched and unchanged for a long time. It's a great saw. It's a proven saw. And two things. One, not enough of these sell that we can put a ton of money in research and development and design into a new one. Two, Husqvarna has a good thing going, so why screw it up, okay? And then here we have the STIHL MS 881. Now, if you know your STIHL things, you know this is actually newer because this used to be a STIHL MS 880. So recently, in the past few years, STIHL has redesigned this saw. They didn't mess with it too much, but they got in and they did some changes to it. Really more in some air filtration, some ergonomics, some clutch cover stuff, really kind of small area changes, but some changes for sure. Now this guy is a 7.42 cube versus 7.25, so almost a quarter of a cubic inch more. It's putting out 8.6 horsepower, and it weighs 21.9, 22 pounds. So there is about a pound difference between these two saws. Are you going to feel it? I mean, yes, I can feel it, but honestly, probably not going to be the determining factor. Is not going to be the weight. So let's open up here the air filter on both of them. See if we can get these in a place where you can see what's going on here. So both of them have a quick access to the air filter. On the STIHL and on the Husqvarna, spin them and the covers are going to come off. So Husqvarna comes off, bam, open. STIHL, it helps on the STIHL if I push down on the master control lever, and now the filter comes off. Okay, so the filter's off. We get a good look. Let's look at the top end there. There's the Husqvarna. And there's the STIHL. Let's take the filters off. There's both the filters. Definitely larger in size, but does this have more filter capacity? There's a lot tighter on the pleats. The STIHL has a nice soft rubber bottom. Husqvarna, not so much. It's kind of a hard felt. Can you hear that? STIHL? Can't hear it. So is the STIHL going to seal better? Probably. Does the Husqvarna have more capacity? Probably. There's a difference. Okay. STIHL is having their, let's go. Let's see what's next. What do we want to look at? Spark plug in, kind of at straight back or on the back at an angle on the STIHL. The Husqvarna is really more on the top. I don't know what that's going to make for a difference to the running, the timing, all that sort of stuff, but something to be aware of, something that's different. STIHL and Husqvarna both have external clutches. How do we get into these? The Husqvarna, it's going to be their 13 millimeter socket or scrinch. Take off those two nuts there. Pop those in the middle of the air filter. And the clutch cover will come off. Clutch cover off on the Husqvarna. We get a good look at that. Look, nice, good size dog. Now let's take the STIHL off. Here's a difference that I think is pretty slick, that I think STIHL gets the win on. You guys may not think so. Maybe you do. Maybe you haven't used it. The STIHL has, there's two things. One is I like these. These are the larger bar nuts, little better grip, better to grab, but they're captive. I cannot lose these in the woods. And my brake is not in my cover. Okay, let's take a look at covers kind of side by side. What do we think of the dog profile? Okay, we've got a 4-point dog versus a 5-point dog. The STIHL, let's get this rubber piece off, has a more protruded lower spike on that tooth, so it might have a little bit more ability to grab. Both feature a side access chain tensioner. No, they don't. Look at this. Chain tensioner on the Husqvarna is up front. On the STIHL is through the side. Okay. The STIHL's chain tensioner is in the body of the saw, right here. Some people are going to scoff at that, like, oh, if it's bent or screwed up, it's harder to fix or replace. I will tell you, it is easier to place the bar onto and hit the chain tensioner like that than on the Husqvarna where it is in the cover here. So I think if I were to give my opinion, I was trying to say kind of non-biased here, is that STIHL wins that for sure. I'm going to say the whole chain tensioning mechanism there is different. STIHL's going to run an external sprocket right here. So when you go to put a chain on, it's a smooth, easy thing to do. My clutch is in the body of the saw. One clip will pull this clutch drum off. Husqvarna uses an external clutch, and I guess we'll call it an internal sprocket. So the sprocket on where the chain is running is right here in between the clutch and the housing. A little bit more challenging to get that chain on. The reasons why they do this, Husqvarna says there's two things. One is kind of a gyration, a pull of a balance of the saw. And the other, they say, is taking the heat from the clutch, because clutches are heat, and moving it away from the engine, therefore allowing the engine to run cooler. STIHL says this works really well. It's easier to replace the sprocket when it wears out. Very true. It's easier to put the bar and chain on. They feel that this is the win. I'm sure there's some truth out of Husqvarna's statement as far as a heat thing, but I have never been able to say true or not true. Okay. Moving around to the front end muffler, get a good look there. Our exhaust port is coming out on my right side, and that is roughly a 1.5 by 1/2 inch exhaust opening. The STIHL, again, itself is coming out on this bar side, the clutch side, and it's a much smaller. So I'm going to guess the Husqvarna is breathing easier. Muffler size, it looks like they're about the same size. Sorry, I'm not going to take those off. When we go to the starter side, okay, it looks like we have a much larger diameter starter, bigger starter out of the Husqvarna. They have their standard pull rope that works. STIHL has their Elasto start. These are 120cc chainsaws. So let me pull this. Compression release is off. Right, I cannot pull that until I jerk it, which means I'm going to put it on the ground, use my foot, use my knee to give it a good pull. But that rubber shock, my fingers appreciate it, my wrist appreciates it, my elbow, my shoulder, my body just appreciates a little bit of give. Now, when I start this, I want to use this compression release, and it's going to pull over much easier, but still we're pulling over 120 cc's of power. Husqvarna, again, compression release, that's hiding on the side versus on the top, no problem. Probably a little more protected here in case something dumb happens, but push in that. There's with it on, yeah, compression release on, and here's off. Again, I can't pull that, but this is a rigid mount starter, so I'm more likely to feel some of that jarring. That said, this is a much more expensive starter handle, so if you lose it, if you break it and lose it or rip a rope out, this is going to be a more expensive starter repair. Looking at caps, Husqvarna is their traditional just thread in caps. You're probably at some point in time going to need to grab your bar wrench and take them loose, and they've got a slot right there to do so. The STIHL is running their toolless caps. Haters hate. Right now, here's your chance. Tell me how much you hate these caps. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you realize it's pretty slick to be able to flip up the black, give it a quarter turn, and pull it out. So easy caps on the STIHL, standard caps on the Husqvarna. They both work. Looking at the back end, I want to take a peek here. So I've got my on-off switch. I have to turn it on. So once I shut it off, it's not a momentary kill switch like certain machines have. So I'm going to turn it on, and then I've got my choke. And to set my choke, I usually hold my throttle, pull my choke out. And now I'm choked and my throttle is advanced. Okay? There's something slick right here on the back of the Husqvarna. We do have an additional manual oiler that's going to put more oil out to the bar and chain when you're under a heavy load. On the STIHL, we have our standard master control lever. So I simply, squeeze the trigger all the way down to choke. It's going to fire. I manually move up one notch. It starts, I squeeze the trigger, it returns to run. And this has a momentary kill switch. So when I bring it and kill it, it returns to the run position. So just a little bit of difference there that might be useful to you on that front. Anti-vibration wise, STIHL is using a rubber buffer. Husqvarna is using a spring system. So your vibration levels out of the STIHL are probably and traditionally going to be higher. The spring, the AV spring mount system, is a smoother running, smoother operating setup. I'm going to see if I can quickly get into the top of these machines just so we can get a look at the top end beyond the air filter cover being off. Well, so far, what do you think? Both these are set up in a flush mount configuration. The STIHL, you can get it in a wrap handle direct from the factory. Husqvarna, it's kind of an option that you have to add yourself. Not a bad way to go to have that. So I've got 2 screws on the side. Probably the wrong tool to do this. I'm using the Husqvarna scrunch to take this loose. So on the STIHL, the brake is in the body of the saw. That may mean more plugging up with debris. Some people would say that. I don't see it as a problem. I've never seen it as a problem, but there's just trying to point out honest differences that you're going to see between the two saws. This one also you're able to hook it up to your, I'm going to fight this. Not often do I take them off. Not often do we deal with saws this size, right? I mean, we sell a few a year, but it's not a daily driver. The STIHL, I can use a flathead or a Torx. A Torx would be easier, T27, because I can get it. Oh, woo, cover's off. Okay, STIHL, top cover off. We'll take a look. You guys can look at that while I pull the top off the Husqvarna, and they are just 3 flat or Phillips screws. I think it's 3. Got the one here in the front. Spin this off. So what do you think? What do you run? What do your buddies run? Do you know anybody that has one of these? Have you felt one of these run? Have you ever walked into a dealership and lifted one up and went, holy cow? We see that all the time. We've got these on the floor and people walk in and they go, holy cow. Well, I'll tell you what, it is a heavy saw, no doubt about it. And it takes a bit to get used to it. But if you have the application for it, it's a pretty cool tool. What I might not have here is the right scrunch. There we go. Okay, so Husqvarna has 4 screws. I got one here on the top front, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 total. So we'll spin these off and get a look at that. While I'm doing that, I'll try to talk through this feebleness. And if you look at I talked about the spark plug. This is a little bit of a slant to the cylinder. They talk about that being for a speed, right? So a higher speed on this saw. I don't know, I didn't look at the RPM difference between the two of them. It'd be interesting to investigate sometime. If you ever have a spark plug boot that doesn't want to come off, the key is to never jerk on it. Wiggle it off. Okay, there we go. Top of saw. So this is really a straight up and down. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cooling fins on the Husqvarna. Nothing on the top, just a big flat pancake head. On the STIHL, we've got 3 or 4 on the top by the spark plug, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cooling fins. So, I mean, realistically, I see a couple more. I bet the Husqvarna has like 1 or 2 less cooling fins on the side. So should dissipate heat better. And as we know, the killer of these saws is going to be heat. So there we go. A quick kind of dig in, look at the 2 big dog saws, the 2 120cc 8+ horsepower milling, slabbing, big giant tree cutting, 42-inch bar chain slinging chainsaws. How often do you get to see them side by side? Hopefully this wasn't too biased, right? Both these saws are good. I deal with both companies. They're both fantastic. It's really a matter of what is the right saw for you. Probably not this one. I just wanted to show you something big, something cool, something massive that can do some crazy work, 120 cc's. But drop a comment down below. Which one do you know? Which one are you used to? Which one do you think is better? What stands out on the Husqvarna? What makes that a better saw in your opinion? Or on the STIHL, what makes the STIHL MS 881 a better saw? All right, guys, as always, thanks for watching. And if you're in the Pacific Northwest, you know the place to come for outdoor power equipment is Karl's Mower and Saw. If you're not in the Pacific Northwest and you're looking for a good saw, my best piece of advice is find a reliable, independent local dealership who can walk alongside you through your purchase, because ultimately they're going to be there for you for the long term. You know, you walking out with this new chainsaw or this new chainsaw today is awesome, but we want to have a relationship with you. We're going to be here to take care of your needs when you need an air filter, right? Or when you need a spark plug, or when you need a chain, or when you forget how to start it, because that happens, right? So, all right, guys, thanks for checking it out. We look forward to seeing you all soon at Karl's Mower and Saw.